In my piece, Bruce Kane's Prince Charming's Complaint, we learned that not every fairy tale has a happy ending. Rescue me! Take me in your arms, rescue me! Anyone remember that song? That's right. Rescue Me, Fontella Bass, 1965, a golden oldie. Well, to most people, it's a golden oldie. Except for the women I married. To them, it's the national anthem. Maybe it's the white charger, maybe it's the suit of armor, maybe it's the royal title. I don't know. But what I do know is that the only kind of women I seem to attract are women with a desperate need to be rescued. If only I'll save them from whatever hell they've been forced into, they're convinced life will be wonderful. There have been a lot of women in my life. I don't deny it. I love women. I don't trust any man who doesn't love women. My mistake isn't marrying them. I'll give you an example. My first wife, Rapunzel. Beautiful name, isn't it? Rapunzel. You don't run into many Rapunzels these days. A lot of Britneys, a lot of Taylors, but not many Rapunzels. I used to love just saying her name. Rapunzel. When I first met her, she'd been locked in a tower by her mother. That should have been my first clue. You have to wonder about a woman who's been locked in a tower by her own mother. But she begged me to rescue her. She said she loved me forever if only I'd save her from that tower. Something told me not to get involved, and I told her that straight out up front. I didn't want to lie. I am Prince Charming, after all. That's when Rapunzel let down her hand. Guys, am I right? There is nothing sexier than a woman who, at just the right moment, gives her head a shake and unleashes cascades of long, flowing hair. And with Rapunzel, this moment came in spades. She shook her head and that thick, gorgeous hair started cascading and never stopped. All I could think of was how I was going to look spread out on a blanket. So what's the first thing she does after the I do's? She cuts her hair. It's too long. It's not practical. It interferes with my backhand. I thought you cared about me. You only cared about my hair. My mother was right about you. Before the marriage even got going, it was over. That's when I met Snow White. I went for a ride in the woods to get away, clear my head, and there she was. Snow White. If ever a woman had been misnamed, it was my second wife. She lived with 7 guys who worked in a mine, for God's sake. Trust me, cooking and cleaning were not the only services she provided. Before she showed up, Happy was just called Phil. Of course, I didn't know any of this at the time. She told me she was only there because her mother or stepmother, I could never get their relationship straight, was jealous of her beauty. See a trend developing here? Beautiful woman, crazy, jealous, vindictive mother. But hey, if only I'd save her from a life of servitude, our life together would be heaven. Now, I was determined not to go rushing in, once burned and all that, but she was the most beautiful woman I've ever seen. On a scale of 10, she was a 17. So, I promised her she'd never have to cook or clean again. And she took me at my word. She never cooked, or cleaned, or got out of bed for that matter. As I later found out, her mother didn't banish her. She kicked her lazy butt out of the house. Hey, that brings me to my last wife. And I do mean my last wife. You see, the doctors told me she had a sleeping disorder. They couldn't pinpoint the cause, but she later told me in private that her stepmother had placed a curse on her. See what I mean by a trend? Now, I'd heard the wicked stepmother routine before, and I wasn't buying, but when she looked deep in my eyes and told me I was the only man in the world that could make her eternally happy. Well, from where I was sitting, there was no way that face, that body, could possibly tell a lie. Well, you know the rest. I won't go into the ugly details, but let's just say, when we did finally sleep together, she actually slept. Okay, so I'm a 3-time loser. What's the point? The point is, gentlemen, take advantage of my story and my experiences. And be very careful when a woman tells you you're her Prince Charming. Now, in my case, that happens to be true. But what man doesn't believe he isn't Prince Charming when a beautiful woman tells him he is? And ladies, you know what I'm about to say is the absolute truth. You all become instantaneously irresistible the moment you tell a man he's your knight in shining armor. You see, it's all part of this happily ever after syndrome that seems to afflict all women from a young age. The truth is, guys, you can't make an unhappy woman happy. It's an impossible expectation to build. And if you try, you will fail. And after you try with one woman, after you fail with one woman, you'll try even harder with the next woman. And eventually, the failures get bigger, the self-doubt grows and grows, until one night you hear her say those fateful words, "It's all right, honey. It happens to a lot of men." But it is possible to break this cycle of expectation and failure. Guys, if a woman talks about knights in shining armor, says the words happily ever after, or refers to, even obliquely, her mother, or even having a mother, very politely, make your excuses, and race for the exits as fast as you can. Now, I know that sounds harsh and a little bitter, and you're probably thinking to yourself right now, has this knight turned in his sword and tunic for a monk Sabbath? Well, a couple of weeks ago, you might have been close to the mark. Then I met this woman. Quite accidentally. I wasn't looking for a relationship, as you might imagine, but there she was. Young, fresh, beautiful. We danced, we talked, and the whole time I thought to myself, she's smart, she's independent, and she hasn't once mentioned her mother. I think she might be the one. Until around midnight, I went to the bar to get us a couple of drinks. And when I returned, she was gone. Just like that. Gone. I mean, she left without even telling me her name. I mean, I'm Prince Charming. Women don't leave without at least telling me their name. Maybe she had something to hide. Or maybe she's in some kind of trouble. If I can help her in any way, I'd really love to. So, if any of you find a woman who fits this shoe, please have her give me a call.